I would hate to be a Nexperia employee in China right now, because yesterday their bosses in China at the Chinese unit said they would be continuing to pay their salaries and told them to ignore any instructions coming from the exterior, i.e. the Dutch. And now, today, the Dutch headquarters of Nexperia is hitting back. They're saying, no, we will continue to pay your salaries, even if you're in China, and we will continue to maintain control of the company. So what we're seeing is a major chip maker, which ships about 100 billion units a year and has a turnover of multi-billion, many billions of dollars. They're getting torn apart over a geopolitical dispute.
So remind us what the dispute is about exactly.
Well, I can give a shout out to Peter Heck at Politico for his great reporting on all of this. At the end of last month, the Dutch government used a Cold War era act, as you said, to take control of Nexperia and oust its Chinese CEO. The reason being that they didn't want sensitive technology to leak to China. Then the Chinese hit back, effectively ending Nexperia exports from China. So now the Chinese Commerce Ministry says, Nexperia, you can't export any more chips out of China. And this is a big problem for Nexperia, which has 70% of its chips in China for final processing. So they do go out of Germany when where they're manufactured, back to China, and then now they can't get them out of China again. This is also a big problem for Nexperia's parent company, WingTech, because they're the Chinese owners and most of their business is actually done through Nexperia.
And might the United States may have played a role in this at all?
Bingo. Yes, it emerged this week as well that back in June, the US administration had put pressure on the Dutch government to oust Nexperia's Chinese CEO in order for the company to avoid American export controls.
And how has Beijing reacted diplomatically?
Well, obviously, yeah, they're not happy at all. They've been accusing the Netherlands of kowtowing to US interests. Take a listen.
China firmly opposes the Netherlands overstretching the concept of national security and its use of administrative measures to directly interfere in the internal affairs of enterprises.
And the Dutch insist that they've made the decision on their own with no exterior pressure. Take a listen.
The stakes are high. They believe we've been pressured by the Americans, that we are in cahoots with them. None of this is the case. Absolutely not.
But it's not the first time that Nexperia has got into trouble in Europe.
No, that's right. There is history here. In 2022, the UK forced Nexperia to divest, that's to sell off its manufacturing arm on UK soil. And eventually it did so, and it was bought by an American company. So perhaps that's a sign of maybe what's to come. Might we see another divestiture here? Who's to tell? It's not, however, the first time chips have been a sore spot between the Netherlands and China either. Relations have been strained between the two countries for years because of restrictions on ASML's high-end lithography machines. Now, those are essential components to many chip makers worldwide. They're a huge factor in the chip supply chain, and they're simply not allowed to go to China. That, of course, was also under US pressure.
So how might all of this then affect us in Europe?
Yeah, well, if you're looking to buy a car, at the moment you'll be totally fine. There's nothing to worry about immediately. But we might perhaps see a bit of supply chain problems in the future if it does come to pass that there isn't a resolution found quickly, and the Dutch government is set to change in about 10 days' time with the new elections. So that might throw things up into the air as well. But how will this affect you then? Nexperia is a particularly important supplier of the automotive industry. And the US and the EU have a lot of car makers who are already voicing concerns about this debacle that's going on. So brands like BMW, Honda and Ford, they're represented by lobbies that are now saying there will be significant disruption if this Nexperia saga is not resolved. This reminds me a little bit of during the pandemic, when we also saw chip shortages for car manufacturers, and there simply weren't enough chips available for demand. Because we have to remember, chips are not in our phones nowadays, just in our phones, they're everywhere, and especially in cars. So talks between the Dutch government, the Chinese government, talks within Nexperia, within all the parties involved, are supposedly ongoing, right? I mean, this is what they always say. But in the meantime, Nexperia's engineers are basically stuck. They've got their Chinese employees on the one hand, the bosses of the group that owns Nexperia, and then they've got the headquarters in the Netherlands and the Dutch government who's taken over the company. So while they're stuck figuring out where their next paycheck is going to come from, lots of us might eventually be stuck waiting longer for our next car, Jenny.